There's a 75% line every law school in America has to stay above. And if a school falls under it, the ABA can pull its accreditation. Most people applying to law school right now have never heard of it, but their school knows that number cold. They just don't put it in the brochure. Now, here's the rule: within 2 years of graduating, at least 75% of a school's grads who take the bar have to pass it. That is the ABA Standard 316. It's been the law of the land since 2019, and it's the tightest version of the rule the ABA has ever enforced. Now, think about what that means for a second. A school can admit you, take 3 years of your tuition, hand you a diploma, and still be sitting one bad bar cycle away from a fight with its own accreditor. And you, the person who just borrowed 6 figures, are the one holding the risk. Today I'm going to tell you what admissions won't. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and the question I get more than any other besides how do I get a 175 is this school actually going to be worth it? And so I read the filings. Every ABA approved law school has to publish a report every year called the 509. It's public and almost nobody reads it. But buried in that report is the one number that tells you whether a school is admitting people it can actually get across the finish line. And I'll show you exactly where to find it in a minute, but first you've got to understand why this cliff exists at all. For years, the bar passage rule was soft. Schools had a 5-year window to get people licensed, and there were so many ways to technically comply that no school was ever found out of compliance. Think about that. A rule that nobody could fail isn't really a rule. But then in 2019, the ABA tightened it to a 2-year window, 75% have to pass. And suddenly, that rule had some real teeth behind it. And so, who's exposed? It's not going to be the top schools. If you're looking at a school where the median LSAT is up in the 170s, their grads pass the bar at rates in the 90s. And so that cliff is not real to them. Now, this video isn't telling you that law school is a scam, because for a lot of people, at the right school and the right price, it's genuinely a good bet. I've never thought law school is a scam, and I still don't. The schools on the edge, though, are the ones at the bottom. Those are the schools that will take an applicant with a much lower score, charge close to full price, and quietly count on enough of those students passing the bar to keep the accreditor off their back. When the class is strong, they clear 75% easily. When the class is weak, they don't. And a school under pressure to fill seats has every reason to admit the weaker class. So you see the trap here? The exact school most likely to say yes to a borderline applicant is the exact school most likely to be scraping that line. Now, I went back and forth on whether to name specific schools here because a single bad cycle could be an outlier, and I don't want to torture place over one hard year. So I'll say it this way. There is a cluster of schools right now sitting close enough to that 75% threshold that a couple of bad bar administrations would put them in real trouble with the ABA. And we've already seen what the far end of this looks like. I've made a whole video recently about a school where roughly half the graduating class failed the bar in a single cycle. And that's not bad luck. That's a school admitting people who were long shots to begin with, and they let them borrow the money to find out the hard way. Now, here's what should make you angry. When a student fails the bar, the school already got paid. That tuition check cleared years ago. The loan is now the student's problem, not the school's, and so the incentive is backwards. The school gets the money up front and offloads the risk onto the exact person who can least afford to carry it. A 22-year-old with no law license and a mortgage-sized loan and no house. That's the villain here. It's not the professors or the buildings, it's the structure. The rule only affects someone when the school gets greedy, and a financing system that pays the school whether or not you ever practiced law. And so what do you do with this? You flip it. Because the same 509 report the schools hope you never open is the single best tool you have. And once you know how to read it, the whole thing tips in your favor. And so here's what you want to do. Before you pay a deposit anywhere, you pull that school's 509 report. You search the school's name plus 509 report or standard 509. It's a 2-page PDF, and you're looking for 2 things. First is the bar passage numbers. You find the first time bar passage rate and the ultimate 2-year rate. If the 2-year number is anywhere close to 75%, that's a warning. It means the school is running near the edge of its own accreditation, and it means a meaningful chunk of the people who sat where you're about to sit did not get licensed. The other thing you want to look for are the LSAT and GPA medians, specifically the 25th percentile. That tells you who the school is willing to let in at the bottom. If that number is low and the bar passage number is shaky, you're looking at a school that's just looking to fill seats. And if you would be at or below that 25th percentile, that would be putting you in the exact same position the bar exam is hardest on. Now, the good news is that your LSAT score is the one thing in this entire equation that's still in your hands. Your GPA is probably pretty locked at this point. You can't control the economy or the ABA or the school's incentives, but you do control your LSAT score. And your LSAT score is what puts you from the bottom of a shaky school's class to the top of a solid one. At the bottom of the range, you are a risk they are absorbing, and so you're paying full sticker tuition. You're the student the bar is going to come for. But if you move your score up into the school's top quartile, you get into better schools where the bar passage cliff is not even a factor. You stop being the student the school is worried about, and you're the student they want, which is the student they pay to enroll. And the same score that got you in the door starts getting you real scholarship money because schools buy high scores to protect their own medians. You could be the same person with the same GPA, but if you have a different LSAT score, it gets you real scholarship money, lets you take on less debt, gets you into better schools. It could completely change the trajectory of your legal career. And so if you want my help getting a higher LSAT score, getting more scholarship money, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free LSAT tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference PDF on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. The link is below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. Now, if you're missing logical reasoning questions on the LSAT, there's a good chance that a single question type is doing most of the damage and you don't even know it. It's flaw questions. And it is the most common question type on the entire exam, but people get it wrong all the time, confidently, and don't even realize it. And so I'm going to show you exactly how to fix that problem, even if you've been stuck with a low score for months, even if you read the argument, you feel sure, pick an answer, and still get it wrong anyway. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I've watched thousands of people do the same thing on flaw questions. So I'm going to tell you why they miss them and then give you the fix because it's simpler than people make it sound. Now, logical reasoning is 2/3 of your LSAT score. Reading comp is the other third. So when people obsess over reading comp and treat logical reasoning as the easy part, they've got it backwards. Logical reasoning is where the points live. And inside logical reasoning, flaw questions show up more than almost anything else. If you fix flaw questions, you're moving the biggest lever on the biggest section. Now, here is how a flaw question works and where people fall off. The question stem will sound something like, the reasoning above is flawed because, or the argument is vulnerable to the criticism that. So your job is to find what is broken in the argument. What is broken in the logic? So here's what most people do. They read the argument, they decide whether they agree with the conclusion, and then they go looking in the choices for something that sounds smart. But agreeing or disagreeing with the conclusion has nothing to do with whether the argument is well built. A true conclusion can sit on top of terrible reasoning. And the LSAT loves handing you an argument whose conclusion feels reasonable, so your guard drops, and then they punish you for not noticing the logic underneath was broken. So I'll give you a real example just to make this more concrete. Quote, the city added a bike lane on Main Street last year. Since then, traffic accidents have dropped 30% on Main Street. So the bike lane made the street safer. Now, what did the argument actually prove? They said the bike lane went in, accidents dropped, then they concluded the bike lane caused the drop. But what else could have caused those accidents to drop? Maybe the city also lowered the speed limit that year. Maybe they added a stoplight. Maybe Main Street got torn up for construction and traffic just rerouted somewhere else, so there were fewer cars to crash in the first place. The argument never rules any of that out. It saw two things happen in sequence and assumed the first one caused the second. That is the flaw, and it's got a name, and you'll see it constantly. The argument confuses two things happening together for one of them causing the other. Just because one thing happened right before something else does not prove the first caused the second. Now, looking at an example like this, we're not finding the flaw by reading the choices. We know the flaw before we even look at them through pattern recognition. We read the argument, and then instead of asking, do I agree, I ask, what is the gap between evidence and conclusion? The evidence was accidents dropped. Conclusion was the bike lane did it. The gap is everything in between, every other thing that could have caused the drop. And so we predict based on our prior exposure to similar arguments. Before you look at the answers, you say in your own words what is missing between what they proved and what they concluded. You pre-phrase or predict the flaw. Then you go to the answers looking for the one that matches what you already spotted instead of getting seduced or suggested by 5 choices that all look the same, that all sound clever. Because the LSAT will distract you with 4 wrong answers that are specifically built to sound right. One of them describes a flaw the argument doesn't actually have. One states something technically true about the world that has nothing to do with the logic. One is worded so abstractly it could have applied to any argument ever written. And if you walk into the answer choices without your own answer already in your head, you're going to get pulled towards whatever sounds smartest in the moment, and the LSAT knows how you think and knows how to pull you towards a tempting wrong answer. But in contrast, if you walk in already knowing the argument confused correlation with causation, those 4 wrong answers don't stand a chance because you're just looking for one thing, your prediction, and everything that does not line up with your prediction is just noise. That is the core of proper approaches to LSAT logical reasoning in general. I use a framework called the Socratic review method with my students. Basically, when you get a flaw question wrong, or even when you get it right but you were shaky, you don't just check the answer and move on. You sit with it and you ask yourself a series of guiding questions until you can explain it to your coach out loud. What did the argument treat as proven that it never proved? What is the exact gap? Why is the trap answer a trap, specifically, not just it's wrong? If you can't explain why the wrong answer is wrong, you don't understand the question yet, and you'll miss a similar one next time. That right there is the difference between doing 3,000 questions and getting nowhere versus doing 300 and jumping up 10 points. It's not about volume. It's about whether you actually close the gap in your own understanding or you just move on to the next one, hoping it'll click eventually. So here's the whole thing, start to finish, next time you hit a flaw question. Read the argument and don't ask whether you agree with it. Just find the conclusion, find the evidence, name the gap between them in your own words before you look at a single answer choice. Then you find the answer that matches your gap. And when you review, you don't stop at right or wrong. You make yourself explain the flaw and the trap out loud until you own it. If you can do that, flaw questions go from being your worst answer type to the one you actually want to see on the test, because now they are predictable. The test reuses the same patterns over and over and over again, confusing correlation with causation, assuming what they're trying to prove, attacking the person instead of the argument, treating one example like it settles everything. Once you name the pattern, you can't unsee it. And what used to cost you points now wins you the most points. That's the LSAT right there. 2/3 of your score is logical reasoning, and a huge slice of that is this one question type, flaw questions, all based on this one habit. And if you want my help getting better at the LSAT, logical reasoning, or reading comp or anything else, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this. You can book that free tutoring with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. Links below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab that free cheat sheet PDF download below the video in the chat in my bio as well. Now let's talk about this. what a top score actually buys you. Law school has two prices, the one on the website and the one your LSAT negotiates. The first time I saw an LSAT score with my name on it, the number was 152. I had spent a year preparing. I went to an Ivy League undergrad. Tests were supposed to be my thing. But after spending 12 months with the popular prep books, the LSAT handed me back an average number. I read it twice as if it might change. Then I sat there doing ugly math about my applications. And under the panic, a worse question kept surfacing. If a year of honest work bought me this number, what exactly had the work been doing? If you've ever stared at a score that didn't match the effort behind it, you know the exact temperature of that feeling. My retake a year later, 175. Same brain both times. What changed in between is the entire second part of this book, and I'm going to make you wait for it. If I hand you the method before you believe the method can matter this much, you'll skim it and go back to drilling. So first I want to show you the part that nobody showed me when I was sitting at 152, what's on the other side. The other side. Top scorers aren't smarter than you, but their Tuesday looks different. They walk out of the test center knowing instead of hoping, and they open the score report with steady hands. Come spring, they aren't refreshing a portal praying for one yes, they're choosing between several, some with money attached. And that's the part that should change how you think about this test. The market for your score. I spend a lot of my time inside law school admissions data. Reuters and law.com have both cited that work, and it's taken me into the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Atlantic, US News, the ABA Journal, and Above the Law. The cleanest thing the data says, law schools live and die by rankings. Rankings still run on numbers, and the one number a school can still buy is yours. The mechanism takes 3 sentences. Every school reports the median LSAT of its incoming class. That median feeds the rankings that deans get hired and fired over. So if your score sits above a school's median, you're not an applicant, you're an asset, and schools pay for assets. Below the median, they might still admit you. They just won't pay you for the privilege. Sticker tuition at private law schools now averages around $60,000 a year, and the all-in cost of attendance runs closer to $85,000 before rent and ramen. Call the degree $250,000. Against that, schools hand out tens of thousands of dollars a year in scholarship money to applicants who lift their medians up to and including full rides. I've had students offer living stipends paid to attend law school. Run it as an hourly rate. Say 4 months of real prep, about 300 hours, moves you 6 points, and those 6 points turn a token scholarship into a $120,000 one. That's $400 an hour for studying. A top LSAT score is a paycheck that pays out every semester for 3 years. Your GPA took 4 years to build and it's locked. This number is still alive. Very few things in your application are, treat the one that is accordingly. The score buys quieter things too. The skills underneath it, reading arguments fast and finding the soft spot, are the same skills law school cold calls run on. You're training for the job before you have it. The same applicant, 3 numbers. I'll make the market concrete because schools pay for assets stays abstract until you watch it price one person. Meet a composite applicant assembled from real offer letters my students have shown me over the years, 3.4 GPA, decent softs, nothing famous. Hold everything about her constant except the score and watch 3 versions of her apply to the same mid-range private school, the kind with a 163 median and the sticker price above. At 158, below the median, she's what admissions officers politely call a discretionary admit. In, but not worth paying for. She might get in, especially with a strong file. What she won't get is money. Maybe a $10,000 a year gesture, net cost of the degree, somewhere north of $190,000, nearly all of it borrowed at whatever terms exist the year she applies. Rough translation, a payment in the neighborhood of $2,000 a month for the first decade of her career. There are public interest jobs she can't take at that number. At that payment, the debt starts picking her jobs for her. At 166, 3 over the median, she's an asset. Half tuition offers are common here, sometimes better, because she raises the school's number just by enrolling. Net cost, roughly $85,000 to $100,000, still real money, no longer a second mortgage. At 171, she's a bidding war. Full tuition's on the table at that school, and in a real fight between two schools that both won her a full ride, occasionally a living stipend on top, stops being a fantasy. Net cost, near zero. And the school a tier up, the one she assumed was out of reach, now looks like the half-tuition school. Most applicants never internalize that part. A higher score changes which schools are doing the discounting, not just the size of the discount. Same person, same essays, same GPA, same recommenders. The 13 points between version 1 and version 3 are worth, conservatively, $200,000 and a wider set of doors. The LSAT is the only number on her application she could still move. The negotiation mechanics come later. For now, see what the market sees. 3 applicants, identical except for one number, priced $200,000 apart. What this book is. I'm not going to pretend I can predict your exact score from where you're sitting. I don't know you yet. What I'll do instead is show you 5 real students and let you judge. Annie, the burnout. The smartest move Annie made all year was canceling her LSAT. She'd done everything the industry tells you to do. Strong college grades, a 153 diagnostic that insulted her, the most popular courses on the market, then months of grinding that dragged her to 160 and parked her there. Test date closing in, score frozen, eyes fried, so she postponed, which most students treat as failure and which turned out to be the first decision of her comeback. When we started working together, she didn't add hours. She changed what happened to her wrong answers, and that frozen 160 thawed. Not instantly, and I want you to hear that part. For about 3 weeks, her scores sat still while her notebook filled, the kind of silence that makes most students quit. Then the line moved all at once. Test day, 170. She got into Stanford Law in one of the most crowded admission cycles on record, and she teaches for me now. The burned out ones often make the best coaches because they remember what it costs. If Annie sounds like you, stalled, exhausted, allergic to one more practice test, Chapter 3 names the trap you're in, and the study caps in Part 3 will feel like permission. Judy, the roller coaster. Judy's problem wasn't her score, it's that she had 6 of them. A year of self-study had produced practice tests that swung wildly, official scores that came in under the practice ones, and no theory of why. Chaos is its own special anxiety. You can forgive bad luck, but you can't plan around randomness. Our first session, I didn't ask for a practice test. I asked her to bring the 3 to 5 hardest questions she'd hit that week, and we went through them at a crawl. The answer choices, and more importantly, her thinking about the answer choices. Her jaw dropped at how much was hiding inside questions she had already reviewed. The swings settled, and then the scores climbed. She finished at 171 and got into Penn Law. If your last 5 practice tests look like a heart monitor, you're not unlucky and you're not broken. You're drilling without reviewing, and Chapter 3 will read like your diary. Anthony, the flat line. Anthony is the student I make every discouraged Week 6 reader study because his scoreboard spent 2 months calling him a failure, while his notebook was quietly calling him a future 161. Diagnostic, 144. He arrived already convinced he wasn't a test person, with the kind of evidence that convinces people. A free course the previous summer had moved him exactly 1 point. We rebuilt his prep around the method in Part 2, and he used it honestly. Written predictions, full autopsies, a journal slowly filling. His next 9 weekly practice scores, 146, 145, 147, 145, 146, 148, 146, 147, 146. Read that line the way he had to live it. 2 months of doing everything right, and the score would not move. Week 6, he sent the email every coach knows by heart, quote, "I think we found my ceiling." So we ignored the scores and read his ledger instead. The Sunday page you'll build in Chapter 10. Week 2, 11 new mistake patterns logged, 3 repeats. Week 8, 2 new, 9 repeats, and the repeats were dying on contact. 5-minute fixes instead of 20-minute excavations. His untimed accuracy had climbed by double digits, while the timed line sat still. The method had been paying him the entire time, just not in the currency he was checking. Week 10, the line moved 151, then 155. Then it never came back down. His official score about 5 months in, 161. 3 points above his target school's median, which became a scholarship covering most of his tuition at a school 20 minutes from his mom's house, which was where he'd wanted to be all along. The sentence to keep from Anthony, because there's a real chance you'll need it around your own week 6, the ledger moves 2 to 3 weeks before the score does. Improvement shows up first as repeat mistakes dying off and written reviews sharpening, in handwriting where almost nobody looks. Students who quit during the silent weeks aren't abandoning a failed method, they're abandoning a working one about 14 days early because they kept checking the scoreboard instead of the books. If your scores are flat while your work has been honest, you're probably not at a ceiling. You're at week 6. Chapter 10's ledger will show you what Anthony's showed him, and one line in that chapter was written specifically for you. I'll leave it here, folks. Thanks for joining. If you're looking for help, you can grab the free LSAT cheat sheet linked below the video at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. It's a free PDF download covering everything, logical reasoning and reading comprehension. I'll see you all Monday. In the meantime, all the best. Thanks for joining and take care.